Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video, and today I will be doing my February 2025 monthly musings. This is basically a video where I talk about everything life, books that I read, and tarot related content. So I'm just going to kind of get right into it because what's really funny is that February, even though it's like the shortest month of the year, for some reason, February felt like it was a lifetime. Just a lot of stuff kept happening. First off, to celebrate the beginning of February, like literally the first day of February and stuff. Funny enough, this is kind of a new development for me, and I don't know why. Like I suddenly felt the urge and the need to do this. But I actually celebrated Imbolc this year, which is very wild. Even though it was technically the first day of February, I actually used the Seasons of the Witch Imbolc to do that. Even though technically at that point I was supposed to be moving on to my February decks, but I did a nice reading. It was really fascinating. Something else I did in February is I went to a wedding. I won't obviously post pictures of like the actual people and stuff, but if my brain remembers, I will post like a video of the place, or not video, photo of the place if I remember, because it was in San Francisco City Hall, and if you've never been there, it is absolutely fantastic and beautiful. Obviously in February, there was also Valentine's Day, which I celebrated with my hubby. We just had like a nice dinner and stuff. There wasn't too much going on, luckily, that day though, because no students. It was a conference day. So like no students were at work. So work didn't even last very long. I got to relax, enjoy a nice dinner. During the month of February too, I explored a new town that I had never been to, which was called Danville, and that was interesting. It's very small, so it wasn't like it was this big, grandiose thing. But they had a little downtown, and Daryl and I got to explore that. What else did I do? I'm like looking at my list here, because if I don't make a list, I'll literally forget everything I did in the month of February. This was also a month of two things. The first is that I was cooking a lot of different food, definitely experimenting and trying new things. Like on Imbolc, I literally made pull-apart garlic rosemary bread, which was really good. I also attempted this month to make my own kimchi, but the recipe I followed, oh my God, the recipe I followed is from this cookbook I have. But there's a step in the recipe that was written really weird, and so I was trying to figure out how to interpret it, but basically I misinterpreted it, and the kimchi ended up way too salty. I still have it though, because I think I can save it somehow, but yeah, it's like the kimchi itself got really salty, but I was also cooking a lot of other tasty food. I just really wanted to experiment this month with food. It was really interesting. And the second thing that is big to talk about today is kind of like a health update with me, because you guys know my health's been like really rocky, been a bunch of ups and downs. Basically, in the month of February, I decided to actually message my doctor more to try to figure out what the heck is going on with me. I'm not going to give too much of an update because there really actually isn't much to say, except that I did a bunch of blood work. And the blood work was mostly good except for one thing, which was kind of weird to the doctor. So she was like, oh, well, then this is kind of inconclusive and you need to come back in like 2 to 3 weeks. So sometime in March, well, it is March at the time me filming this, like literally like this 1st or 2nd of March. But later this month, in March, I will get clarity. But for February, just know I began the process of figuring out what the heck is going on with my immune system. So there's that of that. That's all the life updates. I didn't want to spend too long on that because I have a lot to talk about in terms of books. So for those of you who like to read or like my book updates, let me tell you, I read a total of 5 books in the month of February, but on the last 2 days of February, I have now started another book, so almost 6, but I didn't finish that one, so it's just carrying over into March. But yeah, I read 5 books. I cannot believe. So let me just kind of get right into those. The first book is actually a carryover from January. It was supposed to be a book I finished in January, but you guys know I read the whole Ursi series, and that was really long and crazy, so it meant that this book got pushed into February. This is Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. This is a very famous book. As you can see, it's even won a National Book Award, or it's a National Book Award finalist. Sorry, it didn't win it. And this is also, actually, funny enough, a show, I think, on Apple TV now. I don't know. I only watched like 1 or 2 episodes of it, so I need to go back into this. But this is Pachinko, and if you don't know what this is, it's basically a generational saga about this one Korean family. So it starts with like the grandma, and how she gives birth to like her daughter Sunja, and then Sunja has this whole thing that happens to her basically where she has an affair with this guy who wasn't who he said he was, basically. He didn't even let her know, like, hey, I'm actually married and have kids. And so she was very young and impressionable, like literally a teenager. It was kind of like gross. I was like, oh. And yeah, this guy basically tricked her into being with her. And then she gets pregnant. But then obviously that's a problem because this is like early 1900s, right? So, and during like the Japanese Korean War kind of stuff, or not really war, but you know, it's that timeline where it's getting close to World War II and all that jazz. So she has to leave and make a choice. She decides to marry, what was it? She decides to marry a minister. He decides to take her as she is, even though she's pregnant with somebody else's baby, but he decides to claim the child. And they move to Japan, of all places, to try to start a new life. But this is before like World War II even really starts. And so it just follows like the family as time goes on and like what happens with her kids and then what happens with her grandkids. And so it's this long generational saga. But my thoughts on this book is that I did really like it. I think I would rate this, I think on Goodreads, I had put it just because they don't let you do half ratings. I think on Goodreads, I might have put it as a 5, but more realistically, this was like a 4.5. And I think my reason for that is because even though this was a really fascinating generational tale, I did think that there were parts that were a little rushed for my liking. Like, I think it would have been really interesting to have understood more with Sunja's sons and grandsons, but a lot of things with that kind of get glossed over, or they start going really, really, really fast just to get to the ending of things. And so that part kind of fell a little bit flat, but otherwise it was a really interesting and enthralling tale. I do recommend this one. This one has been on my TBR for a ridiculously long time. Have really meant to have read it sooner, but just didn't. But yeah, that's Pachinko. It's pretty big too. So yeah, that's that one. After Pachinko, what did I read here? Sorry, I'm like trying to look at my stuff. After Pachinko, I read, here we go. I have them all here. I just didn't put them in the correct order. Sorry. After Pachinko, I read this one. This is Amari and the Despicable Wonders. This is the 3rd book in the series. Okay, so I don't want to spoil too much on this one especially if you haven't seen my other videos where I've talked about this series in general. But basically, Amari is a girl who is a part of... Okay, actually, let me explain it this way. This book series is basically if you shoved the Nevermore series, also middle grade, with Men in Black, and you essentially get this book. And so in this one, it kind of picks up where it left off in the last one, where Amari and them have been framed. They're kind of on the run in the supernatural world. But they're trying to gather the despicable wonders before the villain of the story, Dylan, gets a hold of them. And you know what? I have to say, I think this was my favorite so far in the whole series. I don't remember what I rated the other ones right now, but I kind of would put this at a 4.5 or 5. I think this one was the best one so far just because, like, the stakes were pretty high. Some of the characters were really interesting. Still has the same humor and stuff that's kind of been introduced. But I just felt like the stakes were a lot bigger, and the way it ended was really fascinating. I don't know where they're going to... I don't think this is the last book. I think there is going to be a way for them to do a fourth one, but I'm not 100% certain. I guess I will find out. But... this was really interesting to have read. So yeah, this one I think is my favorite so far. So Amari and the Despicable Wonders. I do think it's a fun series, especially, again, if you like the Nevermore series and Men in Black. This might be the one for you to try to read. Middle grade fantasy, I should say. But then, after I read Amari and the Despicable Wonders, I started reading this book. Oof, this one. Okay. This is called The Infinity Courts, and this is by Akemi Dawn Bowman. Oh, I should have said the titles of what was it? Amari and Despicable Wonders. Sorry, this one's by B.B. Alston. But anyways, this is The Infinity Courts. This is a YA fantasy or sci-fi fantasy. It's like kind of both, to be honest, by Akemi Dawn Bowman. Before this series, Akemi Dawn Bowman has mostly done like more like contemporary fiction. And by the way, I love her other two books that I've read, which were Starfish and Summerbird Blue, I believe is what those ones are called. But this series, I did like this. This is Infinity Courts. It is a sci-fi fantasy, basically, where the main character, Nami... it starts with her and her life, and she's trying to get ready to go to a party, but her friends were like, hey, you're the only one with a fake ID. Can you get us some alcohol? And she's like, what? I don't really want to do that, but fine, because she's trying to fit in, trying to keep up with her friends. She just graduated high school. They're just celebrating. But when she goes to try to get the beer from a random... a gas station kind of setup, she gets shot and she dies. And so the rest of the story is her waking up in basically the afterlife. She's in this world called Infinity, and she finds out that Infinity, which was, supposed to be the human afterlife, has been taken over by AI. So this AI that existed in her world found a way to the afterlife and is basically enslaving humans. And so she joins up with the resistance, and they are trying to take down the AI, but a lot of crazy stuff happens. This is only the first book, okay? And I really liked this one. I would also put this, I had a good reading month, I should say that. I would put this somewhere in about a 4 or 4.5 for me, because I really did like it, but I was also trying to see where this was going to go. But it had a really good cliffhanger, so that was cool. And I really like the character. I feel like some people might not like the fact that Nami she has a very good heart, and she's just trying to understand and empathize with everyone in the situation, even though it kind of creates a lot of drama in that way because she has a lot of empathy. But then things change, because then of course I read this and I was like, oh shit, I need to read the second one. So I started reading the second one. This is the Genesis Wars. This is the only other one that's out so far. Book 3 is not out yet, so I can't really speak on that. But this basically continues where it left off, where Nami, I'm not going to spoil too much, but she gets betrayed, and then she has to go on the run. And she's still trying to take down the AIs and stuff, but she's also trying to save humanity from the AI. This one, you do see there is like a shift with her and her personality, because I'm not going to get into spoilers of how, but because she's betrayed in this one, she kind of really hardens her heart in this one, in the second one, and she's definitely more on the side of humans in this one. In this first book, she's kind of conflicted because the AI that took over Infinity was one that she actually used a lot. So it talks about that in the book. I'm not doing a good job of explaining that. But in the second one, she's really a lot more hardened. She's trained. She's like really trying to take down the AI. Really interesting. I would probably put this, I can't tell if I think I like this one a little less, maybe a 4, just because I think her love interest that's in this one, he wasn't really there all that much. And I feel like there could have been more there that would have been a little more interesting. So yeah, this one's probably closer to a 4, but I do want to read the last one. I will be waiting to see how good that one is. I really don't know. But as a series, I thought these two were really interesting, and I'm just excited to see what happens next. But last book that I read in the month of February was this cute little one. This is called The Henna Wars, and this is by Adiba Jaigirdar, I think. I hope I said that right. Jaigirdar. She is the author is Bangladeshi, and this book is also has a Bangladeshi main character. The Henna Wars is basically about Nishat and her love interest. Oh shoot, what's her name? I don't remember what her love interest's name is now. Why am I blanking? It should say, oh, Flavia. Sorry, Flavia. So Nishat and Flavia. Nishat is basically a Bengali Irish girl, teenager. This is YA contemporary, I should say. And she basically comes out to her parents as a lesbian. And at first, her parents are kind of like, they're trying to sweep it under the rug. They don't know how to process it. And so obviously she's very hurt. But she, at a wedding, meets Flavia. And Flavia is Brazilian Irish. Okay. And they kind of like each other. They have this like instant attraction, but she's not sure if Flavia actually does like her or not. It's this whole thing. But then they discover that the school year comes to be, because it starts in the summer and then the school year starts, and they discover they're at the same school now, and they used to actually know each other when they were kids. So that was wild too. It's like when childhood friends like come back together kind of situation. And when they're at the school, they end up in the same business class together. And a part of the business class is that they have to do a competition. They have to make a business. Now, Nishat, in her culture, right, henna is very popular. But Flavia only saw henna through the wedding. And she decides basically to culturally appropriate it. She takes it. And they both basically have competing henna business. So that's what the story is about. I actually really like this one. I'd probably give this a strong 4.5, pretty much close to 5, because I think this was actually really good. It does talk about things like cultural appropriation, racism, how to navigate, coming out to your family. A lot of like really heavy topics that I do think were done pretty well. I think the only thing that could have been better for me was maybe closer to the end. It gets a little bit rushed more towards the end with these two and finding their resolution and kind of being together. Like that's a little bit glossed over near the end. Maybe because she was like, I don't know if word count had to be in play. But it did get rushed a little bit. So in that way, I don't know if I'd give it a full 5, but at the same time, I really like this and I would recommend this one. I don't normally read a lot of YA contemporaries, but I think this is a really good one. And it was just so interesting to see cultures and stuff represented. That was really good. The only thing, and I've said this before about like people who only idea of Portuguese they learn from Brazilian Portuguese. I do know in Brazil, the word garota, because they say that. There's like a line where Flavia is talking to her mom in Portuguese, and the word garota is used. And that just made me cringe immediately, only because, again, Brazilian Portuguese and regular Portuguese, not the same thing. I think a different word probably should have been used instead, because that word in European Portuguese basically means that she was calling, or her mom was calling her a brat, which is not the case. I know she meant it to be girl, but we just don't use that word in that way in European Portuguese. So that was the only thing too that was kind of cringe. But anyways, otherwise, I really like this one and would recommend it to others. So yeah, that is the Henna Wars. And now, with that said, all the books are out of the way. So let's get into Tarot and Oracle. I will be honest, I didn't do a lot of Tarot and Oracle as much as I thought I was going to do in February. I think it's because life was just so jam-packed and so many things were happening that I didn't really get to stop and do a lot of readings. But we'll start with Oracles. I did use these two together for the most part during the month of February. We have the Wild Unknown Pocket Archetypes, obviously Kim Cran's, and then we have Ask Your Guides Oracle Cards by Sonia Coquette. I basically, just like I did kind of in January, I paired these kind of two up together. These are those little, it's the pocket one, so of course it's a little smaller, which is also what I appreciate, by the way. And then, oop, this is like falling over. Okay, and then these are the backs of this one. So these are the backs. Now, normally you would say these probably wouldn't pair up, but I thought these could have been good pairs with certain decks, and that's why I decided to put them as my February Oracles. So this is the last reading, actually, funny enough, that I did with this deck. I got the Dead End with Work. And visually, these don't necessarily go together. But the reason why I chose these two decks is because this deck goes with a few of the ones I'm going to show. And this deck went basically well with the other decks that I had during the month. But I didn't do too much with them. But honestly, these are both really interesting to work with. Still trying to kind of figure this one out a little bit with the archetypes that are used. This one by Sonia Coquette felt a lot clearer, but sometimes it was weird because like the keywords that are used kind of had me having to sit with the guidebook more. Like, I'll be honest with both of these decks, because I didn't know either of these very well. I had to look at the guidebooks more to figure out what they were trying to tell me. But I do think they both wanted to say a lot of interesting stuff. So it was cool. I just love the colors in this one too. This one's really interesting also, but it's just a little different. And you guys know I have a very strange mixed feelings on Kim Cran's in general. So yeah, or her art, I guess. But yeah, these are both really interesting. And I have to say, maybe I'll start with talking about more this one. One of the reasons why I chose this deck, I'm going to put this one away, is because one of the decks that I wanted to use in the month of February, and I will admit I only used one time, was this one. This is the Dream Vision Tarot. This is the second edition. This is by Emma Zhang. This is an indie deck. The other two were mass market. These are the backs of the second edition, the beautiful blue edges. And this is the deck itself. So if we're comparing the Ask Your Guides to this one, as you can see, these are the perfect pairs of each other. So that's why I decided to go with this one. Also because I wanted to get to know this deck a little bit more. But as you can see, perfect pair. Color matching is insane. I do not know how it managed to be so good with each other. But I actually did one reading with both of these. Okay, so the Dream Vision, I wanted to use it more in February and pair it more with this one. But I literally only did one reading. I think it's mostly because life got too busy. But I did manage to pair these two together. I definitely will be pairing these two together again in the future. But I also like that this deck being so colorful, it does go with pretty much all of my colorful decks. So I could use this more for like all kinds of other readings and such. It's just these two are the most perfect pair. Like literally the most perfect pair. I cannot believe. But yeah, so I didn't use Dream Vision as much as I thought I was going to with Ask Your Guides, but this was a really interesting oracle. I do think the keywords were well enough where you could get a lot of meaning, I think, especially if you did bigger readings with it. And then Dream Vision is just Dream Vision. I do love this deck. It's funny that I only used it for one reading because I did plan to use it for more, but this deck is still safe in my collection. It's not going anywhere. It just didn't, you know, it just wasn't the time or the month or whatever for me to be using it as much. But yeah, these two decks. What else did I use? Let me look here. Oh, I won't harp too long on this one, but this is the Zerner Farber Tarot. I also use this deck in the month, really only to do a reading or two. I thought I was going to use this more to read with for others, but I kind of took this deck, just kind of like, I threw it more, it was more of like a, let me throw this deck in my bag kind of deck, even though it's funny, I went out and about and I didn't really use it again. I don't know what it was with February. I just didn't feel like doing as much tarot, even though I loved the deck choices for this month. I tried to pair them with the more Valentine's-y, lovey, romantic feelings. So that's why I went with this one. But yeah, I only used this for like a reading or so, I think. I really didn't do too much with this one. But you guys already know I love the Zerner Farber. Doesn't matter how often or not I use it. This is very safe in my collection. It's one of my faves. Always have a good time with this one. It's a good reader for others. So I'm not going to go too long on this one. But yeah, this was one of my choices for the month of February. Because remember, I have a giant list. And I'm trying to really adhere to that list. And just use the decks for that month. Just because I have so many decks now. And I want to be more intentional about the ones that I use. So yeah, this is Zerner Farber, but I also, well, I did this for, again, didn't do a lot of tarot, but I did use the Linus Oracle Tarot for one reading during the month, but I will show it. This deck is a chonker every single time I say that, but it's true. Like, again, if you're a small hand person like me, it's just, look at this, just the biggest struggle bus to try to get your hand around it. It is Oracle size, like Oracle length, but it also is just super thick cardstock, so that also doesn't help. And it's hard to even do this. I'm managing it, but it like slips out of my hands, almost falls apart every time. It's wild, right? It's just it's just a little wild. But these are the beautiful backs. Obviously, I chose this deck for February because it's very romantic rose vibes. But I did use this just for one reading. But again, this deck is also very safe in my collection. Very beautiful. It's a collage deck. A lot of like Leo rising energy. A lot of roses. A lot of cats. Super cute deck. It's been a classic now. It's been out for a while. To be honest, I really want to get this creator's Vision. I think it's called Visions of the Muse Oracle. But that one, she hasn't like reprinted that in a little bit. I am on her newsletter though. And I asked, and she did say she's going to soon-ish. But it probably won't be for a little bit. But I really hope that one comes back. Just because, I don't know, there's something about that one that I really like the idea of as an oracle. And even though I know that deck will probably be equally as big to this one, I don't know. This is one of those weird exceptions where even though this deck is so chonky and normally I would like want to get rid of it, I just really like, I don't know, I just really like the vibes of this one. So I don't plan to get rid of this one either. But yeah, it's a very romantic looking deck. And that's why I chose it for February. So that is the Linus Oracle. I feel like I had a lot of chunky decks during this month because I also, where is it? I also tried to use this one. This is a Lover's Path Tarot. Okay, I'll be honest. I only did one reading with this one also. So these are the backs, which I'm actually kind of obsessed with. Obviously, because it's supposed to be about lovers and stuff. That's why I picked it for February. But I only did one reading with this one. But fun fact, this deck and the next deck that I'm going to show are going to be a part of my Tarot March Madness. And they did have to face off. I'm not going to say the results of that because you got to watch that video to find out. But they did face off. So that was, I guess, another thing. I started filming very late February. That deck also faced off then. So I did, I guess, do that style of reading too. But other than that, I really didn't work with this one very much. I think this is a deck I definitely need to study a little bit more because a lot of the lovers and stuff that are mentioned, I didn't know them, but I didn't know all of them, or I don't remember their stories very well if I did learn them. So it was kind of one of those situations. But I do like the cardstock on this one. This deck, as you can see, it's also wide. It's also oracle size. So it is, like if I was going to shuffle this or hold it, see, I can't even get my finger around all the way. Can't get my finger around all the way. So it is a little hard, but it still shuffles pretty well this way because the cardstock's not bad. This is US Games mass market. So pretty good cardstock, or at least I like their cardstock. I don't usually have issues with US Games unless it's like the really high gloss. I don't like that. But yeah, Lover's Path Tarot. I had this deck for one reading, or one and a ish reading, I guess, because I also did Tarot March Madness with this one, but it had to also compete against this one. This is the last deck that I used in the month of February. This is the Sistine Tarot. Love it. This is, I will say, sorry in advance, this is a Rose Bay deck, but indie. It was through MPC, but it is out of print now. These are the backs. It has nice linen finish. I do not have the edition. There was like a few different editions of this when it was come out for its limited print run, but I got the one with no gilding just because I didn't want that. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, should I have, but oh well now. Anyways, this deck is so beautiful. This is another collage deck, but this one is more, it's basically more like a reclamation of a lot of Catholic imagery. It like takes that and reapplies it to the tarot. It is super, super beautiful and fascinating of a deck. A lot of people like this one. Who managed to get a hold of it. I do like this one, but I haven't actually worked with it a lot. So basically, just like the Lover's Path Tarot, I did one reading with this one and then an ish reading, like to film the Tarot March Madness. So far, at the time of me filming this, that's all I've used this deck for. But as you know, because it's like, I guess, spoilers or whatever, Tarot March Madness, you may or may not see more of this deck in March if you watch those videos. I'm not going to say. Because it's competing, just like the Lover's Path Tarot is. So, yeah, I guess you'll have to find out. But anyways, if you guys watched this long, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to head out because I think that's all I want to say today. But yeah, again, if you were watching this long, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.